Hi there, Pastor Nate here, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking time to listen to this resource, this talk that we're having today. And if you find that this somehow blesses you in your walk with Christ or helping you to see, find, and follow Jesus, would you consider doing two things? Number one, would you go ahead and give to Avenue Church so that we can better improve on sharing the gospel to so many people such as yourself? You can do that by going to our website, churchontheave.com, and hitting the Give tab. The other thing I would like you to do is if you're watching this through our YouTube page, would you go ahead and click the subscribe button? Or if you're listening to one of our many podcasts that are out there, would you go ahead and give us a review and maybe share the podcast with others so that they too can hear today's talk? Other than that, I hope that you enjoyed today. I hope this blesses you. My prayer for you is that it grows you deeper in your walk with Jesus. Now enjoy today's talk.
My wife and I have been attending the church here for several months now, and I was asked to speak this morning on God supplies every need, including technology, which isn't working this morning. So I have a nice presentation for you with beautiful, funny pictures that is up here in my head and not on our screen. So we're going to try to do this and wing it and see how things go. So the topic this morning is God supplies every need. The question is, what does that mean? Food, clothing, shelter, cars, money, tickets to the OSU football game. What are our needs? How do we define a need? Well, any of you see The Wizard of Oz ever in your life, the movie The Wizard of Oz? You know, the little Tin Man guy, if I only had a heart. The lion, if I only had courage. The other guy, the straw guy, if I only had a brain, right? We tend to want to define a need as those things that we perceive we should have. So, do I need food? Yes, I do. Do I need filet mignon with a nice baked potato at a really nice restaurant with someone bringing me my drinks and my water, and what can we do for you next? Some might say yes, many might say no. Do I need shelter? It's helpful. Here in this country, a first world problem is my shelter is only a 1,500 square foot apartment with 2 bedrooms and only one shower and bathroom that we have to share. If you've ever traveled around the world to third world countries, you may have seen people whose shelter were cardboard boxes and sticks, dirt floor, no indoor or outdoor plumbing. Water was a creek that they also put their excrement in. So many of the things that we think about as being needs are really first world concepts because we live in a first world country, right? So if I don't have a car to get to work, the concept of putting my feet one foot in front of the other and walking to work doesn't make sense because my next door neighbor has 3 cars. I should at least have one really super nice car that gets me where I want to go. This whole concept of I have a need, I know what my need is, and I know that I need it now is a very real first world issue. It exists in other parts of the world as well, but I think here in the United States in particular, because we have so much, we have plenty, that our perception of what we need and what that need looks like and when it should happen is based on the material things, and it's a comparative analysis of what other people have. So what I want to talk about this morning, though, is what is God really saying when Paul said in Philippians, "My God will supply all of my needs." What does that really mean? Do we have access to the scripture to put up at all? Is that possible? Because I don't have any access to it. It's Philippians 4:10 through 13. You may have to read it yourself this morning because I don't have it in front of me. But in that passage, Paul is talking about, he's talking to the church in Philippi, and he's telling them, hey, I'm so glad that finally you have recognized that I have need, and you have been, to this point, not been able to do anything about it, but you're now able to do something about it. But guess what? Here's my situation. I know what it is to be in need. I've been in need before. I know what it is to have plenty because Paul comes from a position of plenty in his Roman experience. And he's telling them, I've learned to live with a lot. I've learned to live with little. But most importantly, what I've learned is no matter whether I have a lot or a little, I can be happy for today as long as I know that God is with me, because God is going to give me what I need for today. So that's what we need to focus on. What is Paul saying? What is it that God is giving him that meets his needs for that day? Let me tell you a little bit about my story, because again, most of you do not know me. So I was born into a very large family with multiple stepbrothers and stepsisters. My father had been married two times before he married my mother, and then married again after my mother. And he had children with each one of those marriages. At one point in time, I think we probably had 7 or 8 of us living in the household at one time, but there were double-digit siblings. I would have to lean on my wife once again to come up with the correct number. It's a little debatable at times who counts and who doesn't count. But the bottom line is lots of kids. My father, ironically, was a minister before I was born. He married his first wife. They had 2 children. He divorced her because he had an affair with the woman that he ultimately married in his second marriage, where he had 4 children before having an affair and leaving that marriage, and then eventually marrying my mom, who was not the affair female. Had 2 more kids with my mom, and then had an affair, and then married that woman that he had the affair with, and had 4 more kids with that woman. He became an alcoholic. He became an abusive alcoholic. What I knew in my childhood was fear, and never knowing when he came home if he had been drinking or not. If he had been drinking, we were sent away, tried to hide so he couldn't find us, because if he found us and had any reason to be angry, he would beat us. So that's what I grew up with. My parents were divorced when I was very small. My mother was poor. We lived in poverty. We lived in homes where there were mice, roaches, dirt. I lived in a very high crime area. We lived in the Near East side of Columbus, which is sort of a demilitarized zone of Columbus, Ohio. I saw gang fights take place in my backyard. I saw people murdered in my backyard. It was a condition of absolute fear and uncertainty about what the next day would bring. Many, many times, my only meal of the day was a ketchup sandwich. My mother had a nervous breakdown, and she disconnected from us. My grandparents spent a lot of time raising us. My siblings, other than my one sister who is a part of my mother, so my only full sister, every other one of my siblings spent time in prison for a variety of crimes, from trafficking child pornography to murder to grand theft to defrauding the government. So this whole environment was undesirable and was filled with need on a daily basis. But the fascinating thing, I was thinking about this morning when I was putting together the final touches on the presentation that you'll never see was, what did I pray for? I accepted Christ into my life very early. I was 5 years old. I can remember it to this day, going to the altar, Reeve Avenue Church of Christ and Christian Union in the south end of Columbus. And I can remember so much of the things that I prayed for. And can you imagine what I might have been praying for? Maybe a warm bed, maybe no bugs when I went to bed, maybe just a decent meal. Bicycle. Baseball cleats that looked like everybody else's baseball cleats. A TV. Things that made me fit in with the people that I was surrounded with. So I wasn't praying for what I would perceive as an adult as a need for that child. I was praying for the things that I felt I needed. These are the things that will make me happy. These are the things that will fulfill me today. These are the things that will make me like everybody else. And so that was my childhood. I lived in an absolute state of almost a third world state within a first world country, and that's not unique. There's lots of people in our society, even though this is a first world country, and we have so many resources available to us. There are many people that live just the way I lived, that grow up just the way I grew up, in environments that are unhealthy, undesirable. How does God meet that need? How are those needs met? It's easy to look at me today, and again, you don't know me, and that's okay. But for those who do know me, you can look at me today and go, he has no needs. He has a nice home. He has multiple cars. He travels. He's got a great job. He has a great income. Can't possibly have any needs. And yet, interestingly enough, I'm sure I do. I'm positive that I do. A fascinating study was conducted and published in 2013. I think it was in The Journal was the name of the magazine that it was published in. It was a study of United Kingdom families. So families that made at least 100,000 euros per year in 2013, probably the equivalent of $150,000 a year family income here in the United States today. They looked at those families and they specifically looked at their children. What happens to these kids? So these are kids that are growing up in a state of relative wealth. They had food, clothing, shelter, extra money. They could do things, have fun. They had an environment around them that was, from a world standard, quality. So what happened to those kids? Well, it turns out that the rate of depression, suicide, drug abuse, psychiatric disorders was higher in that group than it was in the control group. And the question is, why is that? They had everything they could possibly need. How is it that they could live in a state of disruption and discontentment? And it turns out that, once again, what we perceive as need and what God perceives as need are probably two different things. So I would argue that I got this great picture of this little kid. He's standing like this, and he's got this angry look, and he's pointing his finger down. And he says, I know what I want, and I want it now. Right? I know what I want, and I want it now. That's us. That's our society. That's where we live. That's the place we are at in our society. I think we all know what we need, want. And I think we all know the time frame that it should happen in. Now, yesterday, immediately, as soon as possible. But that's us. That's how we're seeing it. If you take that idea and then you apply it to the scripture that we're talking about today, the fact that God will supply our every need, God failed. He's failing because there's still people that are hungry. There's still people that are lonely. There's still people that aren't getting their fundamental needs met. There are still people that want a nicer car, that want to have a better job, that want to make more money, that want to have a better retirement, that want. God must be failing because those wants aren't being met. He promised he would meet all of our needs / wants. Or did he? So, what is it that God is promising us? Well, let's go back and take a look at Paul again. So Paul, he's this guy that grew up a Roman citizen, and citizenship in Rome was not an easy thing. You didn't just automatically get to be a citizen because you went into Rome. Unlike the United States, you had to actually have things around you that made you worthy of being a citizen of Rome. So Paul was a citizen of Rome that put him at a higher stature. Paul was an educated man. We see this throughout the Scripture. He wrote in an educated fashion. He had educators that taught him languages. Okay, I'm just going to gun it from here, so that's fine. If I tried to find it at this point, I'd be lost. So he was educated. He came from a relative position of wealth. He became a very popular, well-appreciated, well-respected persecutor of the first church. Paul was living the dream. He had it all: money, position, education, respect within his society. Paul had it all. And then, one day, he's out on a walk, just taking a walk, heading towards Damascus. And he encounters someone that changed him forever. He encountered Jesus on that road. And on that road, Jesus changed him forever. And Paul suddenly realized that everything that he had, position, wealth, fame, education, it was rubbish. It was of no meaningful value in and of itself. Not that having an education is a bad thing, not that having wealth is a bad thing, but in and of itself, it had zero value. The only thing that valued was his walk and his relationship with God, and recognizing that everything about him, all that he had, all of his capabilities, all of his resources, that they could go away as long as he was focused on serving God. And understanding that he didn't need those things because God was going to provide for him what he actually needed. And that's what we want to talk about. So Paul is a great example of where we are as a society today, as individuals, as a society, looking out and saying, what can I get? What do I want? When can I get it? I need to be in control of this, to a state of recognizing that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's okay if you have it. It's okay if you don't. It just doesn't matter. I can have plenty. I can have nothing. It doesn't matter. What matters is, do we take what we have and we turn it back in and find a pathway to serve the living God? So, one of the words in that passage in Philippians is, I have learned to be content. Okay, so if we can be content, we can also be discontent, right? That's the opposite. I think we all can agree on that one. All right, so what does it mean to be discontent from a biblical standpoint? So there's this 6-point slide that I have that I would love to show you so that I can remember all 6 points. So I'm just going to start kind of fire them off here. I may or may not hit all 6 of them. It's okay if I don't. You'll get the idea. So discontentment is, in essence, saying, I'm not happy with what you've done, God. It's not good enough for me. You're not getting it right. You're not working hard enough. I know more than you do. So let me just help you out here. This is what it should be looking like. You're not getting it right. It's the idea that we know more than God does. We know the timing better than He does. We know the need better than He does. Just need you to listen to my prayer and follow my instructions. The world of discontentment is that space where we're not getting what we think we should be getting because we think he's not getting it done right. Contentment, on the other hand, is the idea that it doesn't matter. We're back to that phrase. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's plenty, whether it's little, materialistically, it doesn't matter. Because whatever I need for today, I know he's going to provide. All right, so let's go back to me, my story. So I had lots of reasons to be discontent, lots of reasons to say I need it and I need it now. And I lived that phrase for a while. I know exactly what I need, and this is what I want, and how come you're not providing it exactly when I need it? Well, life went on, and I began to grow up, became a young man, met my wife, actually when she was 10, thank you, dear, when she was a child, and I was still a child too, though not by age, just by behavior. But we knew each other from the time she was small. But as time went on and she grew up and became old enough to interact with on a more personal level, we fell in love and eventually got married. When we first got married, I was working two full-time minimum wage jobs. She was in college. We had a small apartment. We had a couple of old beat-up cars, two beat-up old cars, one for her, one for me. We had food on the table. Our grocery budget was $60 a month. We went to Cub Foods in Columbus, Ohio, and somehow managed to buy enough food and other things to last a month for $60. But we had people in our lives that supported us in one way or another. My mother, by that time, had gotten a little bit better state of health and mind, and she would occasionally buy us groceries. Beth Ann's grandparents would just do things for us, not out of because we requested it, but just because they could see that there was a need there, and they provided that need. We never went without. There were times when we wondered where the money was going to come to make our next mortgage, or at that time rent payment, or how we were going to get from one check to the next. Certainly, there was a lot of uncertainties about those things. And I was still in a mode at that point of thinking, I know what I need. I know what we need. How come you're not, I need a better job, God. How come you're not providing me with a better job? We need better cars. This car keeps breaking down. We need better cars. How come you're not providing that? And in the middle of it, I didn't always see the hand of God working, but there were lots of little things like when I was growing up, I had a friend that I met in high school that became my best friend, and his father owned a construction company that was a plaster and stucco company. And, one day after we had gotten married, he just approached me and said, "Hey, you interested in being a hod carrier? I'll pay you," I think it was $8.50 an hour, whatever it was, to work for me. It's what essentially I added up to is it was a little bit more than what I was making working two full-time minimum wage jobs. So I got one job for 40 hours a week that paid more than two jobs 80 hours a week. Didn't really think about that as God's hand at work at the time. It was just like, yeah, absolutely, this sounds great. Worked in that job for a very short period of time, and the owner of that company told me, "Hey, if you really work hard, at some point in time, I'm going to let you start having tools in your hand, start learning the trade. It takes 5 years to become a master at the trade, but if you're willing to stick with it and work hard, we may give you that chance." So a few months into the job, I decided I wanted to take a little bit of initiative, so I started picking up the tools on my own. While I was doing the job I was supposed to do, he saw that initiative and let me move forward. 6 months later, I was a full-time journeyman. That 5-year journey took me 6 months. That's not me. I can see that now. At the time, I thought, man, I am really good at this, right? 6 months to get 5 years. God's hand at work, me ignoring that fact. Life journeyed on. Beth Ann graduated college, got a job. We got our first home. So we moved up in the world. We got our first new car, which was actually a little Isuzu pup pickup truck. I think we paid like $5,000 or $6,000 for it, brand new. That was dating me a little bit because there's nothing like that on the market today. We began to move up in the world. Got a couple of dogs. We were living pretty well. All of our needs were being met. We didn't have the nicest home in the nicest neighborhood, but we had our own home. We started thinking about, you know what? Our friends and other people, they've got nicer places, and this isn't really that great of a neighborhood, and it's really not a big enough home, and it's a little old. It takes a little bit of maintenance. Let's build a home. So we moved up to the next level. Job got better. Beth Ann's job got better. We made more money. We had everything we needed. We knew when we needed it. We decided when we were going to move forward and do the next thing. So we just kept on this journey of keeping up with the Joneses and doing great, and had it all. We had the tiger by the tail, the world in our hands. We had it. Decided it's time to have a family. So we started working on having a family. A little bit of getting pregnant difficulties for us that finally, eventually were overcome, and our first child was born. And we just had it all. We had it going. We were really helping God figure this out for us, right? Guess what happened? Day 2 or day 3? Day 2? Day 2, we're thinking we're going home from the hospital. That was still when, she had a C-section, so we had to stay in the hospital a couple days. And hey, we're going home from the hospital, and the nurse walks in and goes, hey, your appointment at Children's Hospital is all set up. You're going to leave here. You're going to go to Children, the cardiologist this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, see, your daughter, she has a hole in her heart. And she's going to need surgery down the road, and you got to get to the cardiologist, and you're going to have to be on medications. And our world changed forever at that moment. I didn't really even know what was happening as far as the changes that were taking place, but that began a journey for us into this whole realm of what's important, where does value lie in life, where's God taking us, what's important to us, what do we actually need to get to the next day? Because we had cars, we had a home, we had food, we had shelter, we had money in the bank, but did we have what we needed? And we really began to look at where are we in our life, and where does God fit into this picture? Does God fit into a convenient box that we can pull him out of and say, hey, God, I need the following 3 things. Can you get those for me? And I need those probably by tomorrow. Or is God going to be in charge, and are we going to put trust in him that he's going to be the one that's going to dictate what we need, and he's going to be the one that dictates when we need it and how it's going to come? Well, if you can imagine having a small child that has a heart defect, and at that time I was not a physician. I had not made that journey yet. I was a plasterer, so I had no idea what it meant, what it meant to have that operation, where the technology was at that time, what her life was going to be like afterwards. All we knew is that our little baby was going to have surgery, and it turned out at 4 months old, she did have that surgery, and I can still, and I'm sure Beth Ann can too, remember her wheeling away at Children's Hospital, Nationwide, Columbus Children's Nationwide Hospital. I can remember her wheeling away and not really knowing if she was coming back. The uncertainty of that was terrifying, and yet, somehow, I had what I needed, which was the strength and the courage to persevere the uncertainty of my baby's life. Wow. Where'd that come from? Because I didn't know I had it. I didn't even know I needed it. And yet there it was. And somehow we walked through one of the most difficult points and times in our lives together with the strength each day to just get through that day. We weren't really thinking about our cars and our home and the money that we had in the bank. We weren't thinking about anything except, Father, how do we get to tomorrow? And can we get there with our baby? And if we don't, we trust you. What is it going to mean for us? How's it going to change us? And that was the beginning of our journey together. And we've walked through a lot of different things. That whole experience, once she recovered, was one of the real driving forces to me deciding, as much fun as working in construction was, that I wanted to do something different. And that led me to go back to college and get my undergraduate degree at Ohio State, and then on to medical school, and then on to residency, and into my current practice. That's a Cliff Note version of 2 or 3 book volumes of information just about the number of times God provided what we needed when we needed, not because we thought that was what we even needed. And it was rarely money or things. Were there ever times where He provided resources that we needed at that moment that we didn't really know where they were coming from? Yes, of course. Of course there was. But it was rarely that we needed. Rarely did we need another $5, $100 dropped off somewhere, another bag of groceries. Maybe we wanted it because it was nice to get a little treat here and there, but that wasn't where the needs lied. The needs lied in the strength, the wisdom to make the right decisions, the perseverance to get through the hard times, the patience, the love, the fruits of the Spirit. He opened those doors to us and gave us those things we needed. And that took us to where we are today. And now, we are in a position now where material things are not the only material things that we want are the things that we want to play with, fun things. We don't have material needs. I think that's a fair statement. Would you agree? We don't have material needs. We have material wants. I think everybody has those, but we don't have material needs. But it doesn't mean anything unless the material things that we have and the passions that we have and the efforts that we put forward have a purpose. And this gets us back to, what does it mean when God says, I will supply your every need? To me, what that is saying is, God has a purpose for us. For each one of us, for myself, He has a purpose for us. And He's going to take all that happens in our lives, the good, the bad, the plenty, the little. He's going to take those things, and He's going to give us the knowledge, the wisdom, the hope, the perseverance, the strength, the support. He's going to give us what we need to allow those experiences in life to mold us into who we need to be at our best in serving Him. You see that? It's not about whether I have as nice a car as my partners do, whether I have the ability to take my family to a really nice restaurant, whether I can travel somewhere at my own whim. It's not about that. It's about taking my life's experience. It's about taking your life experience, walking through that experience, not getting around it, living those experiences, and providing us with what we need to allow those experiences to make us who we need to be so that we can best serve Him and help build His kingdom. My God will supply everything that I need to serve Him and to build His kingdom. So what I would ask you this morning is to take a look at your own lives. I am constantly trying to look at mine and asking, if I don't have, and then pick something, multiple things in your life that you have, those things that you have, that you wanted, if I don't have those, does it change who I see God as? Is my God the God who provides as long as I get what I need as I define it, when I say I need it as I define it? Is that who my God is? Or is my God the God who is walking with me and is going to give me exactly what I need, exactly when I need it, to get through what I'm experiencing so that I can become a better person for His purpose? That's the question I think we all need to take home with us and wrestle with on a daily basis. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that I didn't need technology this morning. I just needed to be open to you. I pray that you will take what has been said this morning, Lord, and that you will use it to help each one of us look at ourselves and find out how can we best avoid the discontentment that says you're not good enough, you're not getting it done, and live in a state of being content with where we're at today, knowing that you are, in fact, at work, providing us with exactly what we need, exactly when we need it, whatever that might be, Lord. Help us not to measure your goodness and your provision based on what we have in material things, Lord, but rather on the journey that we're on, and knowing and trusting and believing that if you were willing to send your Son to die just so we could find you, Lord, that you will certainly provide for every need that we have when we need it. And these things we ask in your name. Amen.